The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Maybe you should stick to filing paperwork, sweetheart. Leave the real work to people who know what they're doing. I said it loud enough for the crew to hear, loud enough that Tommy snorted coffee through his nose, and Big Mike slapped his knee like I'd just delivered the punchline of the century. The woman standing in front of the broken excavator, clipboard in one hand, work boots caked in the same red Oklahoma clay that covered all of us, didn't even look up. She just kept examining the hydraulic arm that had been leaking fluid for 3 days straight. Her silence made me angrier somehow. My name is Derek Patterson, and I'd been working construction for 16 years. Started as a laborer at 19, worked my way up to foreman by 32. I knew every machine on that site, every bolt and bearing, every temperamental quirk of equipment that had been pushed too hard for too long. When Kleinfeld Construction hired me to run this highway expansion project outside Tulsa, they told me I had full authority, my crew, my decisions, my reputation on the line, then corporate center. Sarah Chen arrived on a Tuesday morning in early September, when the heat still hit like a physical thing, and the drought had turned everything the color of old pennies. She was maybe 30, 5'6", with her dark hair pulled back tight and safety glasses that kept sliding down her nose. The email from Regional said she was a specialized equipment consultant, brought in to assess our fleet and improve efficiency. I'd read that as some desk jockey with a degree who'd never done a real day's work, sent to justify corporate's existence by telling us how to do jobs we'd been doing since before she graduated high school. This excavator's been down for 3 days. I told her that first morning, arms crossed. We've got a schedule to keep, state's already breathing down our necks about delays. She nodded, still looking at the machine. When was the last time the hydraulic system was flushed? We do maintenance. That's not what I asked. The way she said it, calm, factual, like she was reading from a manual, made my jaw tighten. Tommy and Big Mike were watching from the equipment trailer, and I could feel their attention like heat on my back. Look, Ms. Chen, Sarah's fine. Sarah, we've got real problems here. That excavator, the backhoe that keeps stalling, the grader that sounds like it's chewing gravel. We don't need assessments. We need parts and time, neither of which we have. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were dark, unreadable. I'm here to help. Then help by staying out of the way. That was day 1. By day 3, she'd inspected every piece of heavy equipment on site, filled 2 notebooks with observations, and started asking questions that made the crew uncomfortable. Questions about maintenance schedules we'd let slide, safety protocols we'd shortened to save time, repairs we'd jerry-rigged instead of doing properly. The guys started calling her the inspector behind her back, not with respect, with the kind of resentment that builds when someone holds up a mirror you don't want to look into. I encouraged it, not explicitly, but in the way I rolled my eyes when she asked to see maintenance logs, the way I'd schedule crew meetings during times I knew she'd marked for equipment inspections, the small, undermining comments that told my guys whose side I was on. College girl doesn't understand how real work gets done, I said to Tommy while we were reviewing the day's progress. Loud enough, always loud enough. Sarah never responded. She just kept working, kept documenting, kept asking her questions. Then came the morning with the excavator, and my joke about paperwork, and the crew's laughter that felt like victory. She closed her notebook carefully, looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not hurt, not angry, something quieter and more disappointing. "This machine isn't broken," she said. "It's been systematically neglected. The hydraulic failure is a symptom, not the cause. We know what we're doing." "Do you?" She gestured at the idle equipment, the project timeline posted in the trailer, showing us 2 weeks behind schedule. "Because from where I'm standing, you've got 3 machines down, a crew working 60-hour weeks, and a contract that's bleeding money every day you don't move dirt." That's not your concern. Actually, it is. Corporate sent me here because this project is failing. And if it fails, everyone here loses their job, including you. The truth of it hit like cold water. But I couldn't back down. Not with Tommy and Mike watching. Not with my authority already feeling shaky after 2 weeks of her questions and observations. We were doing fine before you showed up. Were you? She walked away then, toward the far end of the site where the big machines sat, the ones we hadn't been able to use in weeks. The massive excavator we'd nicknamed Bertha, a 40-ton beast that had been the backbone of the project until her engine seized a month ago. We'd tried everything, new filters, fresh oil, even flew in a specialist from Oklahoma City who declared her terminal and said we'd need to rent a replacement at $15,000 a week. Corporate said no, said we'd have to make do with smaller equipment and longer hours. Sarah spent the rest of that day around Bertha. I saw her from a distance, taking panels off, peering into the engine compartment, making notes. Part of me wanted to tell her to stop wasting time. Part of me was curious what she thought she could find that we'd all missed. By evening, when the crew was packing up and the sun was turning the sky the color of a bruise, she came to find me in the trailer. I need to show you something. I'm busy. Derek. She said my name with a weight that made me look up. Please. We walked to Bertha in silence. The machine looked dead in the fading light, covered in dust, a monument to our failure. Sarah climbed up into the operator's cab and motioned for me to follow. Look at this, she said, pointing to the fuel system gauge. It's empty, we know. Engines seized. It's not empty, look closer. I squinted at the gauge. There was fuel, but the needle was barely moving, stuttering like, water in the fuel, Sarah said. Someone's been siphoning diesel and replacing it with contaminated fuel, probably to sell on the side. The accusation hung in the air between us. That's impossible. My crew wouldn't. I'm not saying it was intentional sabotage. Maybe someone was desperate, behind on bills, saw an opportunity. But this machine isn't dead. It just needs the fuel system purged, clean diesel and new filters. 3 days of work, maybe 4. I stared at the gauge, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. If she was right, it meant one of my guys had caused our biggest delay. It meant I'd missed something crucial. It meant she'd found the answer in 3 weeks that I hadn't found in 4. Why are you telling me this? I asked. She looked at me with that same unreadable expression. Because you're the foreman, and because despite what you think of me, I'm actually trying to help. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my rented room at the extended stay motel, staring at the ceiling, thinking about water and fuel and what it meant. Thinking about the way I'd treated Sarah, the jokes I'd encouraged, the authority I'd wielded like a weapon to keep her at arm's length, thinking about why I'd needed to keep her at arm's length in the first place. The truth was harder than I wanted to admit. I'd spent 16 years building a reputation in a world where respect was earned through sweat and stubbornness, where being the toughest and most knowledgeable meant job security. Sarah's competence threatened that. Not because she was a woman, or not just because of that, but because she represented everything I wasn't. Educated, technical, precise where I was rough. She made me feel obsolete, and instead of learning from her, I'd tried to make her small. At 3 a.m., I got up and drove back to the site. Used my key to get through the gate. Walked past the silent equipment to where Bertha sat. In the moonlight, the excavator looked almost alive, like something sleeping instead of dead. I thought about Sarah's face when I'd made that joke about paperwork. The quiet disappointment that was worse than anger. The next morning I found her before the crew arrived. I need your help, I said, to fix Bertha, and to figure out who's been stealing diesel. She studied me for a long moment. Why the change of heart? I could have lied, made it about the project or the budget or corporate pressure, but something in her steady gaze demanded honesty. Because I was wrong, I said, and because I'm tired of being the guy who can't admit that. Sarah nodded slowly. Okay, but this only works if you mean it. I can't fix these machines alone, and I won't do it while being undermined. I mean it. Then we start now. And Derek? She met my eyes. The crew takes their cues from you. If you change how you treat me, they will too. She was right. I knew she was right. What I didn't know was how hard change would be, or what it would cost me. The investigation into the fuel theft took 2 days and destroyed whatever remained of my crew's trust. Sarah and I started by checking fuel logs against equipment hours, looking for discrepancies. We found them immediately. Bertha had been logged as using diesel for maintenance runs, even while sitting idle. The paperwork showed Tommy Martinez's signature authorizing the fuel draws. Tommy had worked with me for 8 years. He'd been my right hand through 4 major projects, the guy I trusted to manage equipment when I couldn't. He had 3 kids, a mortgage on a double-wide outside Broken Arrow, and a wife who worked doubles at the nursing home to make ends meet. When I confronted him in the equipment trailer, his face went white. Derek, I can explain. Did you steal diesel from Bertha? The silence lasted 5 seconds. It felt like 5 hours. My youngest needed surgery, Tommy said finally. His voice cracked. Insurance denied it twice. We were looking at $20,000 out of pocket. I needed something. I was going to pay it back. By selling company diesel. I know a guy who runs generators off the grid. He paid cash, no questions. I only took from Bertha because she was already down. I thought it wouldn't matter. Sarah was standing in the doorway, clipboard against her chest. She looked away when Tommy's eyes filled. It mattered, I said. We declared that machine dead because of what you did. We fell behind schedule. Corporate nearly shut us down. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry. But the thing about anger is it burns clean and simple. This felt worse, complicated by understanding I didn't want to have. Tommy had made a terrible choice born from impossible circumstances. He'd stolen, yes, but to save his kid. How did I weigh that? You're fired, I said, because it was the only thing I could say. I have to report this to corporate. They might press charges. Tommy nodded. He wasn't crying, but his hands shook as he gathered his things. Tell them I'll pay it back, however long it takes. After he left, Sarah and I sat in the trailer's heavy silence. That was hard, she said. Yeah. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. Did I? I looked at her. His kid needed surgery. The system failed him, so he found another way. Now he loses everything. He stole from the company, from the project, from all of you. I know that. But knowing it and feeling good about it are different things. Sarah sat down across from me. My father worked construction, bridge building in California. He was a good worker, showed up every day. But he never moved up, no degree, no connections. Just his hands and his back. He worked himself into disability by 55, and the company gave him a watch and a pension that barely covered rent. I listened, surprised she was sharing this. So I get it, she continued. The anger at systems that don't value the work you do. The resentment when someone who looks different or sounds different gets opportunities you don't. But Derek, she leaned forward. Tommy made a choice that hurt everyone here. You can empathize and still hold him accountable. You sound like you've had to make that call before. Different situation, same principle. My senior year of college, I caught a classmate cheating on the final. He was supporting his family, first generation, under massive pressure. I reported him anyway. He failed the class, lost his scholarship. She paused. Sometimes the right choice still feels terrible. Word spread through the crew by lunch. Mike confronted me at the gravel pit, voice loud enough that everyone stopped working. You fired Tommy? Over some fuel? He stole from the company. His kid was sick. What the hell was he supposed to do? Not steal. Easy for you to say. You don't have 3 mouths to feed on contractor wages. Mike's face was red, and he jabbed a finger toward where Sarah was inspecting the backhoe. She shows up and suddenly we're all suspects. This is bullshit, Derek. The crew was watching. I could feel the weight of it, the decision point. Side with them against the outsider, maintain their loyalty, or hold the line and lose what little authority I had left. Tommy made his choice, I said. Now we deal with the consequences and move forward. Forward? Mike laughed bitterly. Man, you've changed. Used to be you had your crews back. I still do. That's why we're going to fix Bertha and get this project back on schedule. That's why everyone here keeps their jobs. By throwing Tommy under the bus. By doing things right instead of easy. Mike spat in the dirt and walked away. 3 other guys followed him. By the end of the day, the crew had split into factions, those who saw Tommy as a victim of circumstances, and those who understood why he had to go. Everyone was angry at someone. Sarah and I started working on Bertha the next morning. Purging a contaminated fuel system on a 40-ton excavator is brutal, precise work. Every line had to be flushed, every filter replaced, every connection checked and rechecked. Sarah worked with a methodical focus I'd never seen, explaining each step, showing me the difference between good maintenance and what we'd been doing. See this filter? She held up a component caked in sludge. Should be changed every 500 hours. When was the last time? I checked the log. 200 hours ago. Right. So you're asking the machine to work harder to push fuel through a blocked filter, which puts stress on the pump, which leads to premature failure. Then you're replacing pumps instead of filters, spending thousands instead of hundreds. We were trying to save money. You were creating future problems. Deferred maintenance isn't savings, it's debt. Eventually it comes due. We worked in silence for a while, me learning, her teaching without making it obvious. Around us, the rest of the crew operated with a tension that felt combustible. Jokes stopped. The easy camaraderie that made long days bearable had evaporated. On the 3rd day of repairs, Mike approached while we were installing new fuel injectors. Derek, can we talk? We walked away from the excavator. Mike's anger had cooled into something harder to address. Disappointment. I've been thinking about what you said, he started. About doing things right. And maybe you're not wrong. Maybe we've been cutting corners. And maybe Tommy crossed a line. But the way you handled it, man. You didn't even try to help him. What was I supposed to do? Fight for him, talk to corporate, work out a payment plan, something. Instead, you just cut him loose. And everyone's watching, thinking, that could be me next time. The truth of it stung. You're right, I should have tried harder for Tommy, but he still stole and there are consequences. Yeah, there are. Mike looked toward Sarah, and everyone blames her. Fair or not, she's the reason he got caught. She's the reason we found out what was happening. There's a difference. Not to the guys. That night I called Tommy. He didn't answer, but his wife did. He's not here, Maria said. Her voice was flat. He's picking up shifts at the warehouse, night work. Maria, I'm sorry. Are you? Because you made sure he'd never work construction again. Word spreads, Derek. No company's going to hire a thief. He needs to take responsibility. He is. But you could have helped us. You could have asked corporate for leniency, helped us set up payments. Instead, you protected yourself. She hung up before I could respond. I sat in my motel room, phone in hand, realizing she was right. I'd been so focused on doing the technically correct thing that I'd missed the human thing. There was a space between accountability and compassion, and I'd failed to find it. The next morning, I drove to corporate headquarters in Tulsa. Waited 2 hours to see the regional manager, a man named Hendricks who looked perpetually tired. I want to talk about Tommy Martinez, I said. The fuel thief. What about him? He made a mistake, a bad one, but he's got a family and he's willing to pay restitution. I want to ask that you don't press charges. Let him work out a payment plan. Hendricks studied me. Why? You fired him yourself. Because firing him is enough punishment. Criminal charges will destroy his family. He stole from us. He stole because the system failed him. His kid needed surgery, insurance denied it, and he got desperate. I'm not excusing it, but I am asking for mercy." Hendricks was quiet for a moment. "You know, if we show leniency, other people might see it as permission. Or they might see it as a company that values its people enough to understand that good workers can make bad choices under pressure." He drummed his fingers on his desk. "I'll think about it. But Derek, this can't happen again. You understand that?" "I do. And that woman you've got out there, the consultant, I hear there's friction." "There was. We're working through it. Work faster. This project needs to succeed, or we're shutting it down and laying everyone off. No more chances." I drove back to the site feeling the weight of it. The project, the crew, Sarah, Tommy's family, all of it balanced on decisions I had to make every day. When I got back, Sarah was running tests on Bertha's engine. The excavator's motor was turning over clean for the first time in a month. "It's working," she said, and there was genuine satisfaction in her voice, "because you knew how to fix it." We fixed it, together. I looked at the machine. 40 tons of steel brought back from the dead through knowledge and patience and work that didn't cut corners. "Sarah, I owe you an apology. Not just for the paperwork comment, but for everything. The way I undermined you, encouraged the crew to dismiss you, made you feel unwelcome. I was wrong." She wiped her hands on a rag, considering. "Why the change?" "Because I'm tired of being afraid." "Afraid of what?" "That I'm not good enough. That my experience doesn't matter if I don't have your education. That the world's changing and I'm getting left behind." I paused. "You came here and showed me everything I didn't know. And instead of learning from you, I tried to make you small so I could feel big." Sarah nodded slowly. "You want to know what I see when I look at you?" "What?" "Someone who built a career through grit and persistence. Who knows these machines in ways I never will, through feel and sound and instinct. I've got the technical knowledge, but you've got something I can't learn from a book." She gestured at the crew working across the site. "They follow you because you've earned it. I wanted to learn from that, not replace it. I didn't see it that way. I know. But here's the thing, Derek. We can both be good at this. Your skill doesn't diminish mine, and mine doesn't diminish yours. We're stronger together." "Yeah," I said, "we are." But even as I said it, I wondered if the crew would see it that way, or if the damage was already too deep to repair. 3 weeks later, Bertha was running better than she had in 2 years, and we were actually ahead of schedule for the first time since June. The crew's morale had improved slightly, not back to where it was before Tommy's firing, but functional enough to get work done. Sarah and I had fallen into an efficient rhythm, her technical knowledge complementing my practical experience. Then the state inspector showed up. His name was Gordon Wheeler, a thin man in his 60s, who'd been inspecting construction sites since before I was born. He had a reputation for being thorough to the point of obsessive and absolutely incorruptible. When his white truck pulled through the gate on a Tuesday morning, I felt my stomach drop. "Routine inspection," he said. Though the way he said routine made it clear this would be anything but. He spent 4 hours going over every machine, every safety protocol, every piece of documentation we had. Sarah stayed with him, answering questions, showing him maintenance logs, explaining the repairs we'd made. I watched from the trailer, trying to work, but mostly just worrying. When Wheeler finally came to find me, his face was grim. "Mr. Patterson, we need to talk." We went into the trailer. Sarah followed. Wheeler set his clipboard down with the weight of a judge's gavel. "I'm shutting you down." The words didn't make sense at first. "What? Why?" Safety violations, multiple machines operating with expired certifications, maintenance logs showing extended intervals beyond manufacturer recommendations, and evidence of previous contamination that wasn't reported to the state. He looked at Sarah. Ms. Chen did excellent work documenting the recent repairs, but that documentation also shows a pattern of neglect that constitutes a serious safety risk. We fixed everything. You fixed what you knew about, but I found 6 other issues during my inspection. Minor on their own, critical when combined. This site is a liability. How long? Minimum 2 weeks while you address everything in my report. Could be longer depending on what I find when I come back. After Wheeler left, I sat in the trailer feeling numb. 2 weeks shutdown meant falling catastrophically behind schedule. It meant losing the contract. It meant everyone losing their jobs. Sarah was reading through Wheeler's report, her face pale. "This is my fault," she said quietly. "What? No, I documented everything. Every violation, every shortcut, every deferred maintenance item. I gave Wheeler the ammunition to shut us down. You were doing your job. I was so focused on being thorough that I didn't think about the consequences." She looked up at me. "I wanted to prove I belonged here, prove I knew what I was doing, and in the process, I might have destroyed this project." I wanted to tell her she was wrong, but part of me wondered if she wasn't partially right. Her documentation had been impeccable and damning. She'd exposed every flaw, every corner we'd cut, laid it all bare. "We'll fix it," I said, with more confidence than I felt. The crew took the shutdown about as well as I expected, which is to say, terribly. Mike confronted me in front of everyone. 2 weeks without pay? Are you kidding me? The state shut us down, not me. Because of her." He jabbed a finger toward Sarah. "She documented every tiny thing, handed them a list of reasons to shut us down. This is what happens when you bring in outsiders." "Mike, no, I'm done. I'm done with you, done with her, done with this whole mess. I've got bills to pay, and I can't do that sitting on my ass for 2 weeks while you fix problems we wouldn't have if she'd never shown up." He walked off the site. 2 other guys followed him. By the end of the day, I'd lost 5 crew members. The ones who stayed did so only because they had no better options. The atmosphere was toxic, blame flowing in every direction. At Sarah for documenting too thoroughly, at me for bringing her in, at corporate for cutting budgets, at Tommy for stealing the fuel that started this cascade. That night, I found Sarah sitting on Bertha's idle tracks, staring at the sunset. "They hate me," she said. "They're scared. Scared people need someone to blame. They're not wrong to blame me. I should have been more strategic about what I documented, how I presented it. I was so determined to do everything by the book that I didn't consider the real-world impact." I climbed up beside her. "Can I tell you something?" "Sure." After my first year as foreman, I pushed my crew too hard trying to impress corporate. We finished a project 3 weeks early, but 2 guys ended up injured because I'd prioritized speed over safety. One of them still limps. I paused. "The point is, we all make mistakes while we're learning. You were being thorough because that's who you are, someone who does things right. That's not wrong. But the consequences are real, and we'll deal with them. But Sarah, if you hadn't documented those violations, eventually someone would have gotten hurt, maybe killed. Wheeler shut us down now, but he might have saved someone's life down the road." She was quiet for a long time. "You think we can fix this?" "I think we have to try." The next morning I gathered the remaining crew. "I know you're angry," I started. "I know you're scared about bills and job security. I get it. But here's the reality. We can spend 2 weeks blaming each other, or we can spend 2 weeks fixing this site properly so we can get back to work. Your choice." "What about pay?" someone asked. "I'm meeting with corporate tomorrow to negotiate partial wages during the shutdown. I can't promise anything, but I'll fight for it." "Why should we trust you?" This from a young guy named Chris. You've been wrong about everything else. You're right, I have been. I missed the fuel theft, ignored maintenance issues, created a culture where we cut corners to save time. But I'm learning, and I'm asking you to help me fix it. Silence. Then one of the older guys, an equipment operator named Earl, spoke up. What do you need us to do? We spent the next week systematically addressing every item in Wheeler's report. Sarah and I worked alongside the crew, me learning proper maintenance protocols, her learning when to bend technical specifications to practical reality. It was hard, unglamorous work, replacing seals, updating certifications, reorganizing documentation. Corporate agreed to pay half wages during the shutdown, enough to prevent complete financial disaster, but not enough to make anyone happy. I visited Tommy's house and told him Hendricks had agreed not to press charges if he paid restitution over 2 years. Maria cried. Tommy shook my hand and didn't let go. "Thank you," he said. "I should have done it sooner." On the 10th day of shutdown, while I was replacing hydraulic seals on the backhoe, my phone rang. It was Hendricks. "Derek, we've got a problem. The state contract requires continuous progress. This shutdown violated those terms." My blood went cold. "What does that mean?" "It means they're pulling the contract. We're done. We're ahead of schedule now. We fixed everything." "Doesn't matter. The shutdown clause is clear." "I'm sorry, Derek. Start preparing the crew for layoffs." I hung up and just sat there, wrench in hand, watching the rest of the crew work. They didn't know yet. Didn't know that everything we'd been working to save was already lost. Sarah found me 20 minutes later. "Derek, what's wrong?" I told her, watched her face fall, watched her shoulders sag under the weight of it. "It's my fault," she said. "If I hadn't documented—" "Stop! We've been through this. But the crew, they'll lose everything, and it's because Sarah." I stood up, took her shoulders. "Listen to me. You did the right thing. The system is broken. The contract terms, the budget cuts, the pressure to cut corners. None of that is your fault. None of this is your fault." "Then whose fault is it?" "Everyone's. Mine for not maintaining things properly, corporate for creating impossible standards, the state for writing contracts that punish safety compliance. We're all complicit." She pulled away, walked to the edge of the site where the highway stretched empty into the distance. "I came here to help, to use what I learned to make things better, and instead I made everything worse. You showed us our flaws, that's different. Is it? Because from where I'm standing it feels the same." I didn't have an answer for that. That evening, I called a crew meeting and told them the truth. Watched their faces shift from disbelief to anger, to resignation. Earl asked if there was any chance of fighting the contract termination. Mike, who'd come back when he couldn't find other work, said we should have known this would happen when we brought in corporate spies. No one blamed me directly. Maybe they were too tired. Maybe they saw the defeat in my eyes and recognized someone who'd already punished himself enough. After everyone left, Sarah and I stood in the empty site office. "I'm going back to California," she said. "Turn in my resignation. This clearly isn't working." "Running away? Being realistic, I don't belong here." "You belong here more than you know." "How can you say that? Look what happened. I see someone who cared enough about safety to risk being hated. Someone who taught me that good enough isn't good enough when lives are at stake. Someone who made me a better foreman, even if I don't have anything left to be foreman of." She looked at me with red eyes. "This hurts." "Yeah, it does. I thought doing the right thing was supposed to feel better. Sometimes the right thing just feels right. Not good, not bad, just necessary." She nodded slowly, gathered her things and walked to her car. I watched her drive away, wondering if I'd see her again. Then I turned back to the silent machines and started making a list of everything we'd need to do to shut the site down properly. Even in failure, some things had to be done right. The call came 3 days later at 6 a.m. While I was packing my apartment for the move back to my mom's place in Lawton, Hendrix's number on the screen. Derek, don't shut anything down yet. I was too tired to hope. Why? Wheeler went to bat for us. Told the state that we were the only site he'd inspected in 5 years that actually fixed every violation on first notice. Said most sites fight him for months. He argued that the shutdown proved we were serious about safety and that should be rewarded, not punished. And the state agreed to a contract modification. We restart Monday. With the same budget, but a 3-week extension and mandatory third-party safety oversight. It's not perfect, but it's a second chance. I sat down hard on a box of books. We're back? You're back. But Derek, this can't be like before. No shortcuts, no deferred maintenance, everything by the book. Wheeler will be watching. Understood. And Derek, that consultant, Sarah Chen, whatever you did to piss her off, fix it. I need her on this project. After I hung up, I just sat there for a while, letting it sink in. We had another chance. The crew would have jobs. The project could finish, but I'd need help making it work. I found Sarah at a coffee shop in downtown Tulsa, laptop open, working on her resignation letter. When I slid into the booth across from her, she looked up with surprise that shifted quickly to wariness. "We got the contract back," I said. She blinked. "What?" I explained about Wheeler's intervention, the contract modification, the second chance we'd been given. Watched her process it, her engineer's mind already running through implications. That's good," she said carefully. "It is. But we can't do it without you. Derek, I know you're planning to quit. I know the last month has been hell. But Sarah, we need what you know. I need what you know. Not just your technical expertise, but your standards, your unwillingness to accept good enough when better is possible. The crew hates me. Some of them do, but some of them have started to understand that you were trying to protect them. Earl told me yesterday that his daughter is studying engineering, said he hopes she turns out like you, someone who won't compromise on what's right." Sarah's eyes got shiny. "He said that?" "He did. Look, I can't promise this will be easy. Culture doesn't change overnight. But we've got a chance to build something different here, a site where safety and efficiency aren't enemies, where experience and education work together instead of against each other." She was quiet for a long time, fingers drumming on her laptop. "I want conditions," she said finally. "Name them." "Full authority to implement maintenance protocols. Weekly safety meetings with the entire crew, and you back me up even when it's unpopular." "Done. I'm serious, Derek. The first time you undermine me to keep the crew happy, I won't, I promise. We do this right, or we don't do it at all." She closed her laptop. "Okay, I'm in." We restarted the project on Monday with 8 crew members. 3 never came back, including Mike, who'd found work on another site. I didn't blame them. Trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired. Sarah and I stood in front of the remaining crew and laid out the new reality. "Things are going to be different," I started. "We're going to do full maintenance on schedule, even if it slows us down short term. We're going to have safety meetings every Monday, and we're going to document everything, because that's how we prove to the state that we deserve this second chance. Some of you are angry at Sarah," I continued. "You think she got us shut down, but she exposed problems that were going to hurt someone eventually. Maybe kill someone. I missed those problems because I was too focused on speed to care about safety. That ends now." Earl raised his hand. "What happens when we fall behind schedule again? We communicate with corporate. We ask for help. We don't cut corners to catch up." I looked at each of them. "I know that's not how we've always done things, but it's how we're doing them now." The first week was rough. Everything took longer with proper protocols. We hit delays when safety checks revealed issues we would have previously ignored. The crew grumbled. And I had to force myself not to slip back into old patterns of pushing harder instead of smarter. Sarah implemented a new maintenance tracking system that seemed overly complicated until it caught a failing bearing before it destroyed a transmission. That one catch paid for itself 10 times over and converted a couple of skeptics. By week 3, something started to shift. The guys began asking Sarah technical questions instead of just tolerating her presence. She started learning who was good at what, delegating based on skill instead of seniority. I watched her become part of the crew instead of apart from it. One afternoon, I found her and Earl deep in conversation about hydraulic systems. Earl was showing her the sound a healthy pump makes versus a failing one, something he'd learned over 30 years that no manual could teach. Sarah was recording notes, genuinely fascinated. "You're learning from him," I said later. "Of course. Earl's forgotten more about these machines than I'll ever know. Why wouldn't I learn from him? Because you're the expert, the consultant. Derek, I'm an expert in theory. He's an expert in practice. Both matter." She smiled. "Took me a while to figure that out, but better late than never." We finished the highway project 2 days before the extended deadline, under budget, with 0 safety incidents, and with maintenance logs that Wheeler called exemplary during his final inspection. The night before we wrapped up, the crew threw a small party at the site. Nothing fancy, just pizza and beer and the kind of satisfaction that comes from doing hard work well. Someone brought a speaker, and country music drifted across the empty highway lanes. Sarah stood with Earl and a couple of the younger guys, all of them laughing at something. She caught my eye across the site and raised her beer in acknowledgement. I raised mine back. Tommy showed up unexpectedly and brought by Earl, who'd stayed in touch. There was an awkward moment when everyone went quiet, not sure how to react. Then Tommy walked up to me. "I heard you went to bat for me with corporate. Got them to drop the charges. Should have done it sooner." "No, you did right firing me. I stole. I knew it was wrong when I did it." He paused. "But thank you for the second chance at making it right." "How's your kid?" "Good. Surgery went well. We're paying it off slowly, but she's healthy. That's what matters." We shook hands. It didn't fix everything. Tommy would never work for Kleinfeld again, and our friendship was permanently altered. But it was something. A small piece of reconciliation in the wreckage. Later, Sarah and I sat on Bertha's tracks watching the crew pack up equipment. "What's next for you?" she asked. "Corporate offered me another project. Smaller crew, tighter timeline, but they want me to implement the protocols we developed here." "You taking it?" "If you'll consult on it." She laughed. "You want me to keep making your life difficult?" "I want you to keep making me better at my job. There's a difference." "Yeah," she said. "There is." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun set over the highway we'd built. "Derek, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "That first day when you made the paperwork comment, what were you really afraid of?" I thought about it, wanting to give her an honest answer. That you were going to show everyone that I didn't know as much as I thought I did. That experience wasn't enough anymore. That I'd become obsolete. And now I know that experience and expertise aren't enemies. You don't replace me, and I don't replace you. We make each other better. She nodded. "I was afraid too, you know. Afraid that I'd never be accepted because I learned from books instead of doing. That no matter how much I knew, it wouldn't matter if I couldn't speak the language of the work site. You learned, we both did. The project officially closed the following week. Corporate sent Hendricks to oversee the final paperwork. He pulled me aside before leaving. "Good work here, Derek, really good work." "Thank you, but I had help." "I know, that's why I'm promoting you. Regional supervisor starting next month. You'll oversee 3 projects instead of 1. "What about Sarah? What about her? I want her as my lead consultant across all 3 sites, full-time position, benefits, the works. Hendricks raised an eyebrow. That's a big ask. She's worth it, more than worth it. I'll run it by the executive team. They approved it. 6 months later, I was standing on a different site in Arkansas, watching Sarah explain proper bearing maintenance to a skeptical crew who'd never worked with a woman before. I saw the same doubt in their eyes I'd had, the same defensive posturing. I also saw Sarah handle it with patience and competence, earning respect through knowledge and work instead of demanding it through title. After she finished, I pulled the foreman aside. She knows what she's talking about, I told him. She's never swung a hammer. Neither have you lifted hydraulic specifications out of a manual at 2 a.m. to save a project. Different skills, same value. Trust me on this. Listen to her, and she'll make you better at your job. He nodded slowly, still uncertain but willing to try. That night, Sarah and I reviewed the Arkansas project timeline over dinner at a local diner. They don't trust me yet, she said. They will. How do you know? Because you're patient enough to earn it, and good enough that they'll realize they need what you know. Same way I did, she smiled. You were more stubborn. I was more scared. There's a difference. We worked through dinner, planning maintenance schedules and training protocols, finding the balance between ideal and practical. The same balance we were still learning, project after project. I thought about that first day at the Oklahoma site, the joke I'd made, the laughter I'd encouraged, the way I'd tried to diminish someone else to feel bigger myself. I thought about Bertha, the 40-ton excavator we'd declared dead until Sarah showed us it wasn't the machine that was broken, it was our approach to caring for it. Some machines can be fixed, some relationships can be repaired, some men can learn to be better than they were, not through grand gestures or sudden transformations, but through the daily work of choosing humility over ego, learning over defending, and collaboration over competition. Derek? Sarah was looking at me with concern. You okay? Yeah, I said, just thinking about how far we've come. We've got farther to go. I know, but at least now we're going together. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand, a gesture of partnership, of mutual respect, earned through struggle and work, and the willingness to change. Outside, the Arkansas night was warm and thick with humidity. Tomorrow we'd start again. New crew, new challenges, new opportunities to do the hard work of building not just highways and bridges, but something more important, a way of working that valued both experience and expertise, that recognized that strength comes not from knowing everything, but from being willing to learn. I'd mocked her at the construction site, convinced I knew better. Then she'd started the giant machine we'd declared dead, and in doing so, started something in me I'd thought was dead too. The capacity to grow, to change, to become someone better than the man I'd been. The work was hard. The work would always be hard, but for the first time in years, I was excited about it. And that made all the difference. 18 months after the Oklahoma project wrapped, I stood in a construction trailer in Montana during the worst blizzard the region had seen in a decade. Outside, wind howled against the metal walls with a sound like tearing fabric. Inside, Sarah and I faced a crisis that threatened to undo everything we'd built. The project was a mountain highway realignment, dangerous, complex, and running on the thinnest margins I'd ever seen. We had a crew of 22, 3 of whom were now trapped on the upper section of the work site when an early-season storm hit with unexpected ferocity. Weather reports had predicted snow, but not this. Zero visibility, temperatures dropping to -15, wind gusts strong enough to flip equipment. Radio communication had gone spotty an hour ago. The last we'd heard, the 3 men, including Earl, who'd followed us from Oklahoma, had taken shelter in the equipment shed up at mile marker 47. But that shed wasn't built for this kind of cold, and rescue wouldn't be possible until visibility improved. if it improved. "We need to go get them," I said, studying the topographic map spread across the table. Sarah shook her head. "It's suicide. You can't see 10 feet in this. You'd drive right off the cliff." "So we just leave them up there to freeze?" "I didn't say that. I said we can't do a vehicle rescue right now." She was already on her phone, pulling up weather data. "The wind's supposed to drop in the next hour. If it does, we might have a window." "Might isn't good enough. Earl's 62 years old with a bad heart. He can't handle this kind of cold. And you can't help him if you're dead in a ravine." We stared at each other across the table, the old tension back, my instinct to act versus her need to calculate risk. But this time neither of us was wrong. Earl needed help, and the rescue was dangerous. Both things were true. The crew gathered in the trailer, stamping snow from their boots, faces tight with worry. These were men who'd worked with Earl, learned from him, respected him. They wanted action, wanted someone to do something. "What's the plan, boss?" This from Marcus, a young operator who'd joined us in Arkansas. "We wait for the wind to drop, then we go. Small team, tracked vehicle. Safety lines, no heroes." "What if the wind doesn't drop?" I looked at Sarah. She was running calculations, studying wind patterns, doing what she did best, turning chaos into data, but even data had limits. "Then we figure out plan B," I said. The waiting was worse than the work. We monitored weather stations, maintained radio contact attempts, prepared rescue equipment we might not be able to use. The crew made coffee, told stories about Earl, tried not to think about what happens to human bodies in -15-degree wind. Sarah pulled me aside after 20 minutes. "There's another option," she said quietly. "What?" "The old access road on the eastern approach. It's longer but more sheltered from the wind. We could potentially get a vehicle up that way. That road hasn't been maintained in years. It's probably washed out." "Probably, but it's also our best chance if the wind doesn't drop." I studied the map. She was right. The eastern approach wound through a valley that would provide some wind protection. But it also meant navigating unstable terrain in zero visibility, with no guarantee we could even reach the upper section. "It's risky," I said. "Everything's risky right now, but sitting here while Earl freezes isn't risk management. It's paralysis." She was right. The old Derek would have charged up the mountain on gut instinct and gotten people killed. The new Derek was so focused on following protocols that he was forgetting the point of those protocols, keeping people safe. Sometimes safety meant calculated risk. "Okay," I said. "We try the eastern approach, but we do it smart. Safety lines, constant communication, and we turn back if it's not working." Sarah nodded. "I'm coming with you." "Sarah, don't. You'll need someone to navigate, someone who can read terrain and make real-time decisions about stability. That's me. If something happens, then we'll deal with it together, same as we've dealt with everything else." We assembled a 4-person rescue team, me, Sarah, Marcus, and an experienced climber named Rita, who'd done mountain rescue in Colorado. We loaded the tracked utility vehicle with emergency supplies, medical equipment, and enough rope to rig safety lines across unstable sections. The crew watched us prepare with faces that said they knew this might go badly. "You bring them back," someone said. It might have been a prayer. The eastern approach was worse than I'd feared. What had been a road was now a suggestion of a path, covered in 3 feet of fresh snow and littered with deadfall. Visibility was maybe 15 feet. The tracked vehicle crawled forward at walking speed, Sarah calling out obstacles from the navigation seat while I fought the controls. "Rock formation, 10 feet, bearing left," she'd say, and I'd adjust. "Washout, 5 feet, stop." We'd stop. Rita would get out with a safety line, test the ground, signal whether we could cross. It took 90 minutes to travel 3 miles. My hands ached from gripping the controls. Sarah's voice grew hoarse from constant navigation. But we were moving, getting closer, doing something instead of nothing. Then the vehicle lurched sideways. "Stop! Stop!" Sarah shouted. I hit the brakes. The world tilted through the window. I saw darkness where ground should be. We'd driven onto a snow bridge over a crevasse, and it was collapsing. "Everyone out! North side!" Rita commanded. We scrambled out, roping together in practiced movements. The vehicle settled with a groan, half on solid ground, half over empty air. One wrong move, and it would drag us all down. "Cut it loose," Marcus said. "That's our way back," I countered. "That's our anchor to the bottom of a crevasse," Rita said. "We cut it loose or we all go down." Sarah was already working the rope, separating our lifeline from the vehicle's anchor point. Her hands moved with steady precision, even as the ground beneath shifted. "Derek, the equipment. Forget the equipment, get clear." She met my eyes for a second. In that look was everything we'd built. Trust, partnership, the knowledge that some things matter more than completing the mission. We cut the vehicle loose. It slid backward with a grinding shriek, disappeared into the darkness, and hit bottom with a distant crash that we felt more than heard. We stood in the blowing snow, roped together, 3 miles from the trailer and 2 miles from Earl, with no vehicle and no way back except our own feet. "Well," Marcus said. "Shit." "We keep going," I said. "We're closer to Earl than to base. We get him, we find shelter, we wait out the storm." "With what equipment?" Rita asked. "We just lost everything." Sarah was checking her pack. "We've got emergency blankets, hand warmers, first aid. Enough to keep 5 people alive for 12 hours if we're smart." "If the shed's intact," Marcus added. "It's intact," I said, with more confidence than I felt. "Earl would make sure of that. He knows how to survive." We started walking. The next hour blurred into a nightmare of cold and wind, and one step after another. Sarah and I traded navigation duties, reading terrain by feel when visibility dropped to nothing. Rita kept us roped properly, calling out when someone stumbled. Marcus carried the medical pack and never complained. My hands went numb. My face stopped hurting, which was worse, but we kept moving because stopping meant dying, and Earl was up there somewhere, and we'd come too far to fail now. When the equipment shed finally emerged from the snow like a ghost ship, I almost didn't believe it was real. "Earl!" I shouted. "Earl! It's Derek!" The door cracked open. Earl's face appeared, pale but alive, with 2 other crew members behind him. "Took you long enough," he said, but his voice was weak. We crowded into the shed. It was barely warmer inside than out, but it blocked the wind. Earl had organized the space efficiently. Emergency supplies pooled in the center, insulation torn from equipment to create barriers, a chemical camping stove providing minimal heat. "You doing okay?" Sarah asked him, checking his pulse. "Been better. Been worse." He looked at our snow-covered gear. "You walked up? Vehicle went into a crevasse. So we're stuck here. For now. Storm's supposed to break in a few hours. We ride it out, then we figure out extraction." Earl nodded. "Knew you'd come. Knew you wouldn't leave us up here. You'd do the same for us." "Damn right I would." We settled in to wait. 7 people in a shed built for equipment storage, sharing body heat and emergency supplies, listening to wind try to tear the walls apart. Sarah distributed hand warmers, checked everyone for frostbite, organized our resources with the same methodical precision she brought to everything. At some point, Earl caught my eye. "You two make a good team," he said quietly. "We do." "Wasn't always that way, if I remember right." "No, it wasn't." "What changed?" I thought about that, about the Oklahoma site and Bertha, and the moment I'd stopped seeing Sarah as a threat and started seeing her as a partner, about all the small decisions and hard conversations that had rebuilt trust after I'd destroyed it. "I got out of my own way," I said. Stopped trying to prove I was good enough and started trying to actually be good enough. Earl smiled. That's the difference between boys and men. Boys need to prove. Men just do the work. The storm broke 4 hours later. By then we'd used most of the hand warmers and 2 of the emergency blankets. Everyone was cold, stiff, but alive. We radioed down to base, and the crew came up with sleds and ropes and enough people to get us all down safely. The walk back took 6 hours. By the time we reached the trailer, I couldn't feel my feet, and Sarah was leaning on Marcus for support. But we were back. Everyone was back. The crew erupted in cheers when we came through the gate. Hot coffee appeared. Someone wrapped blankets around shoulders. In the chaos and relief, I saw Sarah slip away to the trailer. I found her 15 minutes later, sitting alone, staring at nothing. "Hey," I said, "you okay? We could have died out there." But we didn't. We lost the vehicle. We put everyone at risk. Her voice cracked. What if I'd calculated wrong? What if the Eastern approach hadn't worked? I sat beside her. Then we'd have tried something else. Sarah, we saved 3 lives today. You saved 3 lives today. Your navigation, your planning, your refusal to just sit and wait, that's why everyone's alive. Or it's luck. Some of it was luck. Most of it was skill. Your skill, and trusting each other enough to use it. She was quiet for a long moment. I've been thinking about that first day in Oklahoma, when you made the joke about paperwork. I've thought about that day a lot too. I was so angry, but I was also scared, because part of me wondered if you were right, if I was just a desk person playing at understanding real work. You never were. I know that now. But it took almost dying in a blizzard to really believe it. She looked at me. Thank you for trusting me up there. Thank you for being someone worth trusting. We sat together while the crew celebrated outside. 2 people who'd started as adversaries and become something more important. Partners who made each other better, who trusted each other in storms, who knew that real strength wasn't about being right all the time, but about being willing to learn from being wrong. The Montana project finished 3 months later. We implemented new emergency protocols based on what we'd learned in the storm. Earl retired shortly after, healthy and whole, with a going-away party that lasted until dawn. At his farewell, he pulled Sarah and me aside. "You two keep doing what you're doing," he said. "This industry needs people who care more about doing things right than doing things fast." "We learned that from you," Sarah said. "Nah, I taught you about machines. You taught yourselves about integrity. That's harder." After he left, Sarah and I stood looking at the finished highway, a ribbon of asphalt through impossible terrain, built to standards that would keep people safe for generations. "Worth it?" I asked. "The storm? The near-death experience? The 18 months of 12-hour days? All of it," she considered. "Yeah, it was worth it." "Why?" Because we built something that matters. Not just the highway, though that matters too, but we built a way of working that values people and safety and doing things right. We changed how construction happens, one project at a time. That's worth cold feet and lost vehicles and every hard moment. I nodded. I used to think success meant never making mistakes, never showing weakness, never admitting I didn't know something. And now I think success means being brave enough to change, to learn, to become better than you were. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. We stood together as the sun set over the mountains, 2 people who'd traveled different paths to the same understanding that excellence isn't about perfection, it's about persistent growth. That strength isn't about never falling, it's about standing back up with more wisdom than you had before. That sometimes the giant machines we think are dead just need someone willing to look at them differently. And sometimes the giant prejudices we think are permanent just need someone willing to challenge them. The work continues, the projects change, but the lessons stay the same. built into every decision, every protocol, every moment, when we choose to do the hard right thing instead of the easy wrong thing. I mocked her at a construction site, convinced I knew everything. She showed me I knew nothing about what really mattered. And in learning from her, I became someone worth being. That's the real story, not about machines or highways or storms, but about the human capacity for change when we're brave enough to face our flaws and humble enough to learn from them. The rest is just construction.